Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking through why I have 12 full-time employees as a YouTuber. Yay! Nailed it. Mic test, mic test, mic test. Probably got it. You have to. Wow, you got it. Nice.
Okay. Obviously it's not 14, just
Where do I look?
Okay, so...
In the lens? In the lens?
Yeah, in the lens, yeah.
My name is Jakub.
My name's Angus. My name is Tommy.
Hey, I'm Bob.
I'm Dan.
My name is Saf.
Hi, I'm Inez.
My name is Gareth.
Hi, I'm Tintin. So, why do I have this many people working for me? Firstly, I'm going to talk about the 3 top reasons as to why I have 13 employees. Then, we're going to do the org chart, and I'm going to show you exactly what the roles are, what they're doing, and kind of why they exist. And then the final part of the video, I'm going to answer frequently asked questions that people have always asked me around, like what the deal is with all this kind of team stuff. And as always, there's going to be timestamps down below. It's probably quite a long video, so don't feel like you have to watch all of it. Feel free to skip around to the bits that are most interesting for you. So let's start with the big question, why? And there are 3 main reasons as to why. Reason number 1 is that hiring people has helped me free up my own time. So for the first 2 years of running this YouTube channel, from 2017 to 2019, I was doing everything myself. I was doing all the scripting, the filming, the setup, the editing. The editing took absolutely ages. And it was only 2 years into my YouTube journey that one of my mentors told me that, hey, at this point, you should probably outsource your video editing. Because this was when I was working full-time as a doctor, and I was ending up spending sometimes like 3, 5, 7, 10 hours a week just editing videos. So initially, our first team member, Christian, was hired as a way for me to free up my own time. And then over time, as the teams evolved, there's sort of been basically three things that I've wanted to offload from my plate. Number 1 is things that I didn't personally enjoy. So like I said, I stopped enjoying the editing after a while. Secondly, I wanted to delegate over time the things that I was personally very bad at. But then the third big category of things that I want to delegate is stuff where it is a kind of low value action that I'm doing. For example, me filming a video is very high value because I am the only one who can film the video, and it then creates a video on the YouTube channel, which could potentially make loads of money through AdSense. Most of our videos are sponsored, and so we get money through sponsorships. And so really the one main point of having all of these team members is that they are doing the things in the business that are not sufficiently valuable for me to be doing myself, because I could be doing higher value things. Now, reason number 2 for hiring people for what is ostensibly just making YouTube videos is that we want to do more things and we want to do better things. So for example, we've got 2 full-time video editors on the team at the moment, and that means we can put out 2 pretty high quality videos every week. If we wanted to get that up to 3 videos a week, which we might do at some point, we would probably want to hire a 3rd full-time editor. But alternatively, let's say I wanted to make my videos super full of animations and custom music and all that kind of stuff. That's like trying to make the videos better, and so we'd probably need to hire people to help make the videos better. Now this applies to YouTube videos, which is the most obvious thing that you guys see, but also the podcast, for example. So we started a podcast about a year and a bit ago, and because actually organizing a podcast is a massive like logistical faff in terms of booking guests and contacting people, that was a thing that we thought, hey, it would probably be worth having someone full-time to just manage the podcast, to focus on that. And really, as we started to add more and more people to the team, my own ambitions for what I wanted from the business also started to increase to a point. If you've got a team of people where you're like, oh, hang on, I could just hire someone to be the podcast producer, and then let's say we've got a videographer who can make the podcast look amazing, and like an army of editors who can make the podcast actually feel amazing in the edit. Now, all of a sudden, your ambitions for what a good podcast is get massively elevated by virtue of being able to delegate the bits that you don't want to do yourself, or the bits that you're not very good at, to someone else. So ultimately, it comes down to doing more things and doing better things. And then reason number 3 for having team members is just vibes. It's just really fun. People often ask me if there's anything I miss about working in medicine. And I used to say that the one thing I miss was the banter with the coworkers. But since getting my own team, I now have banter with the coworkers. I just don't have to do that in a hospital. I can do it in my house or in an office or in Lisbon where we were for a team retreat last week. If I imagine what is the sort of business that I want to create, it is a business that works with a small group of people regularly and in person. And so yes, even if it does cost more in terms of hiring someone full-time in the UK, in London, and then the cost of the kind of management side of things, for me, it's worth it because it's actually just way more fun. And it's also kind of nice having people who are full-time employees who are then sort of wedded to the success of the business, compared to working with freelancers who have multiple clients. And so really in any future business that I might make, sort of as an offshoot of this YouTube channel or outside of it, I would always, I think I would always want to be working with people in real life just because of the vibes. All right, we're just gonna take a quick break from the video to tell you about this video's sponsor, which is very excitingly WeWork. Now WeWork, you've probably heard of it, it's the world's most famous flexible workspace provider. And I've actually been a paying customer of WeWork for the last 2 years. Me and one of my team members, Angus, started working from the WeWork in Cambridge during the pandemic at some point when workplaces were open. And so that was was an absolutely amazing like sanity thing for not having to work from home all the time. And since I moved to London, I've actually gotten WeWork all access passes for me and everyone else on my team. And what the all access pass does is that it means you get one of these WeWork cards, and that means that on the WeWork app, which is on your phone, you can book a desk or a conference room in any WeWork anywhere in the world. And so these days I work from home some of the time because I've got my setup and stuff here. But if I ever need a change of scenery, I'll just rock up to one of the local WeWorks. There's really great vibes, really beautifully designed. The heating is always nice and warm. There's free coffee, the bathrooms are good, Wi-Fi is super fast, it's way faster than it is at home. Often actually we'll just, rock up to the WeWork just to be able to upload large files. Every single person I've ever spoken to who's like, I wonder if I should get a membership for a co-working space. I'm like, 100% do it. WeWork is amazing. So if you're interested in giving it a go, you can hit the link in the video description, or if you download the WeWork app and you use the coupon code ALI, A-L-I, that will give you 50% off your very first booking, so you can try it out and see if it vibes with you as much as it does for me. So thank you so much WeWork for sponsoring this video. Part 2, what the hell do all of these people do? This is the next big question. People are like, you've got 14 people, 13 people on your team. What on earth do all of them do? So let's talk about that. So our team is broadly split up into two halves. We've got Content Squad and we have Money Squad. Now the people in Content Squad, their job is to help me try and make really good content. We're trying to make inspiring educational content that helps people build a life that they love. And then the mandate of Money Squad is to find a way to help make the money that makes the business profitable and sustainable in a nice and non-scammy and not overly salesman-y kind of way. So what does this look like? So in Content Squad, we have a chap called Tintin, who is our YouTube producer. Basically, Tintin is my YouTube buddy, my YouTube guy, helps out with everything on the YouTube channel. It's super handy having someone in that role because it means that like the thing that I personally enjoy doing is taking a topic and then finding a way to synthesize and explain it in an interesting way. I don't particularly enjoy trying to figure out what's the most clickbaity but not too clickbaity title for the video. I don't particularly enjoy creating thumbnails for videos, and I certainly don't want to be dealing with all of the kind of scheduling and operational side of figuring out like which editor has which video and like are they being released on time. I also don't particularly enjoy looking at the analytics and seeing like retention curves and click-through rates, and all of that is the stuff that Tintin very beautifully magically takes off my hands. The next member of Content Squad is Amber. Now Amber is our podcast producer. So the things that Amber does, for example, is that she came up with like the whole strategy around how we're growing the podcast, content strategy for the podcast, figuring out what guests we want to reach out to on the podcast, actually reaching out to those guests, trying to do all the scheduling, trying to book them in, trying to make sure the timings and the calendars fit. Then once we've got a guest confirmed, Amber kind of goes back and forth with them, arranges the transport, gets them to the studio, wherever we're filming. And then Amber also does some research for the guest, or she delegates that to someone else that she's working with. And we create this sort of dossier about the guest and some potential questions and avenues so that if I'm doing research on the guest, I can use that document and it saves me time. And then once we film the podcast, Amber is the one who kind of gets the footage and liaises with Richard, who is one of our freelance editors, for the audio edit, the video edit, figuring out what clips from the podcast we want to go into the trailer for the podcast. And there's like this whole sort of production machine behind something that sounds simple on the surface, like a podcast, but actually if you look at any of these big podcasts out there, they all have teams behind them. All right, next on the team, I'm going to talk about two people in like together, but actually, they are individuals and they have individuality and all that kind of stuff. But for ease of explanation, and that is Becky and Gareth, who are collectively together in charge of basically all of the social media platforms outside of YouTube. At the moment, Gareth is dealing with Twitter and LinkedIn and email, and Becky's dealing with TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. Like having these two who are world-class experts in those platforms and who are keeping on top of all of the strategy changes and looking at what like competitors are doing and thinking of creative ways that we can put out content across all these different platforms, that's another really important role on the team. Because yes, the YouTube channel is sort of the main thing that we've got and it's by far our biggest audience. But across these socials, we also have like 1 million followers across the other social media platforms and like 250,000 or thereabouts on all of our collective email lists. And so partly the point of growing across all these different platforms is A, because that's where the audience is at. Like not everyone is keen on watching 85-minute long YouTube videos. And so because the mission of the business is to help people build a life they love through inspiring educational content, we don't want to be platform specific. It's not only that I'm wedded to making YouTube videos. And so for example, these guys are coming up with our short strategy or our TikTok strategy or like our Instagram strategy and figuring out how can we say the same thing, but in a way that is native to the different social media platforms. But then also the social media platforms from a business point of view allow us to diversify. It's quite dangerous building a business that's entirely reliant on a YouTube channel. Currently, this business is almost fully reliant on the YouTube channel, But if anything happened to the YouTube channel, we at least then have these other social media platforms to fall back on, as it were. And if we could potentially build our audience to be as big across all the other platforms as it is on YouTube, that really gives a lot of longevity and diversification and anti-fragility to the business. And then finally, it's worth shouting out the email newsletter or our email list, because it's the only platform out of everything that we've talked about that we fully control. If we get someone's email address, we can contact them whenever we want. And so we've got my newsletter, Sunday Snippets. You can sign up to it if you haven't already. I send an email every week with like a few thoughts and a few kind of links to interesting things I've enjoyed or read that week. And then Gareth is responsible for like the strategy side, the scheduling side, building a referral program, trying to track all the numbers to make sure that like, you know, we're converting people from like social media audience to email subscribers. The next member of Content Squad is Inez, who is actually a part-time member of the team. Inez works around 3 days a week and she is our researcher. So right now, and for the last year or so, Inez and I have been working really closely together on research for the book that I'm working on. Inez has been amazing in like going down research rabbit holes and finding research to back up some of the things we're saying. Or if I've got an idea for a thing we want to write in the book, then Inez will see, is that actually legit? Is there science backing this thing that I think is legit? And a lot of the time she'll be like, yep, you know, there's a bunch of papers to back this up. But sometimes she'll be like, well, actually, it's a good idea, but actually the science isn't quite there to back it up. Therefore, we don't want to talk about it in the book. But Inez also contributes to research on various videos. Like, for example, we had a sleep expert on the podcast a few months ago, Russell Foster. And so Inez and Amber worked together to figure out how do we turn his kind of podcast episode into an interesting YouTube video. And then members 6 and 7 of Content Squad are Saf and Addy, who are our full-time video editors. So Saf is actually a former student of my part-time YouTuber Academy. We hired Saf a few months ago and he's joined the team as a full-time member and he's often here in person. And then exactly a month ago, we also added Addy to the team. And Addy is actually a video editor who's based in India, in Delhi. And Addy is amazing and he's, you know, completely smashed it with the recent video edits. And then alongside Saf and Addy, we also work with a bunch of freelancers who help with the shorts in particular. Now, the final member of Content Squad, I've also put a little bit aside because this is Dan. Now, Dan does a lot of different things. So Dan's role in Content Squad is that he's our kind of website webmaster, website manager. And so Dan's job these days is to basically grow our audience on the website. I think we get like a stupidly large amount of just monthly traffic on the website from people searching my name and searching for articles that we wrote like ages ago. And so Dan is trying to work out a way of kind of optimizing the website, making sure all the links work, making sure that the website is fast enough, and then figuring out a system to work with me and our researchers so that we can, for example, convert YouTube videos into website articles. But the reason I put him in a separate box is because he also has another role in that he is also my executive assistant. So he deals with any sort of emails and scheduling and calendar and stuff that I have to do, which is super nice for me because then I don't really need to check my own emails because Dan will flag up if there's anything interesting that I need to reply to. But then Dan is also our head of legal and finance and HR. So legal, he liaises with our solicitors to figure out if we need like employment contracts or if there's trying to file a trademark or if there's anything that comes up that we need kind of lawyer consultation on. In terms of finance, Dan is the main person who talks to our accountants in terms of sort of keeping the accounts up to date, the bookkeeping, the receipt tracking for expenses from various different team members. And then in terms of HR, so human resources, again, when you have employees, you've got to deal with pensions and national insurance contributions and tax and contracts and time off and perks and benefits and all of that kind of stuff associated with having full-time employees. And so Dan is amazing and deals with all of that kind of stuff. So then we come to Money Squad. Now, the way our business basically works is that 99% of our content is completely free to anyone who wants to watch it or listen to it or read it on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, across all the social media platforms, across the email newsletter. But for 1% of our audience who wants to buy it, 1% of our content is available as paid courses. And so really we create this flywheel where if we create loads of free content and then some people buy the course and then that allows us to make money, which allows us to create more free content and we hopefully get this virtuous cycle going on. Jakob is our head of marketing and so he's basically the bridge between our Content Squad and our Money Squad. So for example, when it comes to our courses, Jakob will be the one who makes the landing pages and tracks all the kind of analytics for them to make sure that we're doing the right things. Jakob is the one who'll come up with our marketing strategy to be like, okay, how do we get sales for our courses but do it in a way that's on brand and not scammy and not salesman-y. Jakob is tracking various tracking links on the website to see kind of where is traffic coming from and where is it going to. And then when it comes to actually marketing a course, Jakob is the one who's sort of coming up with the strategy and a lot of the execution for like our email funnels and scorecard campaigns and webinar funnels and challenge funnels. Next on Money Squad, we have Tommy, who is our head of sales and product. These roles are a little bit in flux because we're going through a lot of changes for our part-time YouTuber Academy. We've been running live cohorts for the last like 2.5 years, but what's coming up in April is our very final live cohort. So Tommy's been in charge of getting sales to that product and like hopping on calls with people and answering their questions and seeing if it's the right fit for those customers. But Tommy is also in charge of then creating our next series of products, which we want to be evergreen courses. Next on the team, we have Alison, who is our head of customer success. So we have thousands of students in our part-time YouTuber Academy, and we want to give them all an amazing world-class experience. And Alison's job is to make sure that people who are our paying customers are having an amazing time. And so she does so much work on the back end in terms of making our course come together, in terms of making sure everything is working, and making sure that if anyone has any problems, they can just email us or message us on any of our platforms, and we'll get back to them and try and help them out as best as we possibly can. We always have some students who join our course who, for example, for whatever reason, don't submit the homework assignments. So Alison will actively reach out to them and say, hey, Johnny, we noticed that you signed up for the course, but you haven't yet engaged with any of the lessons. Is there anything we can help with? Is there anything that's holding you back? What can we do to help you start your YouTube channel or help you grow or help you get the most out of the course? And that's an absolutely huge role, which Alison does a fantastic job of keeping things running, and also hiring extra freelancers that we work with during our live cohorts, like our student supporters, to give feedback to our students. It's a massive thing, and Alison orchestrates that whole process behind the scenes. And then we come to Barv, who is in fact a former student of the Part-Time YouTuber Academy, and Barv is kind of the operations manager, the head of operations for all of the courses side of our business. Barv is the one who's like plugging everything in behind the scenes and making sure that our Zoom links are working and the calendar integrations are working and all of our no-code Zapier automations are working, so that when a student signs up to the course, they fill out a form. That form takes the data from the student, transfers it into a spreadsheet or CRM that we can use to keep track of the students, makes sure that the system is sending them the login details so they can access the course materials, making sure that when they submit videos for feedback, those are being flagged and then being flagged to our appropriate student support team who are giving the feedback on those videos. And now that our live cohort is ending, and hopefully this is the final one that we're going to run in April, Barv is transitioning into more of an innovation role where she's going to work very closely with me to basically dive into all of the different areas of the business and figure out how do we make this more efficient, how do we operationalize it so it frees up our own team's time from not having to do the minor mundane stuff and instead focusing on the big picture strategy stuff. And then last but not least, we come to Angus, who is the general manager of the business. This is called different things in different businesses, but Angus is basically the glue that holds the entire business together. He initially started working with me 3 years ago as a freelance writer, and he started writing a few articles for the website. And then he came on very quickly as a full-time employee and now has ascended the ranks to basically become the guy that orchestrates the entire dance. And Angus is the main reason why I can be very chill while having such a big team, because if I had to manage 13 other people myself, it would be an absolute nightmare and I would be terrible at it and it would not be fun. But Angus basically allows me to live in the clouds, where all I have to do is film videos every now and then whenever I feel like it, write my book stuff, go to conferences, meet people, do cool stuff. And Angus is the one who's sort of keeping the troops in line and making sure the business is aligned, making sure people are doing what they need to be doing, making sure that he's unblocking people if they need help with anything. And also Angus is the guy who negotiates basically all of our sponsorships, because over the last 3 years, he's built good relationships and contacts. And when I speak to other creators that are like, oh my God, you've got a team of 14 people, that must be the worst thing ever. It's like, it's actually really fun if provided you have a really good general manager who is doing the day-to-day management of stuff. Right, part 3 of the video. This is getting very long, but if you're still here, then thank you very much. Please do drop a like on the video if you happen to still be here. We got loads of questions. I posted on Twitter and a bunch of people asked various questions about what it's like having 13, 14 team members on the team, depending on how you count them. So I'm gonna go through the tweets and answer some of the questions. This is gonna be fun. Firstly, we have Michelle Vargus, who says, is each person a specialist or a generalist? Okay, so our editors are specialists. Our editors are absolutely sick. Saf and Adi are amazing. Jakob is a bit of a specialist in that we hired him when he was like sort of had 3 years of marketing experience. And Inez is a bit of a specialist because she literally has a PhD. Becky is a bit of a specialist because she used to be in PR and had done like digital marketing-y type stuff. Gareth is a bit of a specialist because he had, again, like marketing and content marketing-y type experience. But broadly, we have a very young team, like most of us are in our 20s, and broadly it skews more generalist than specialist. Specialist to me is like someone with 10 years of experience in like marketing or in sales or in operations or in, that kind of stuff. And initially it was a bit of an accidental decision to hire generalists because I was a generalist and we just ended up hiring various generalists. And then over time, it became a conscious decision because people kept on saying, like, working with coaches and stuff, that, hey, for example, Angus, this is the only job he's ever had. He sort of ended up becoming a general manager. A big question around Angus back in the day was, should we essentially allow Angus to become the general manager of the business where he's managing this whole team with zero experience versus hiring someone who already has 10 years of experience of running a team, a sort of proper adult, in inverted commas, in the business. And there's pros and cons to both. Thought about it for a very long time, and I decided kind of ultimately, philosophically in the end, that I want to run the sort of business where people are kind of promoted from within and, growth mindset and leveling up and all that kind of stuff. Angus has now kind of grown into that role that he was supremely unqualified for. And I think that's like quite a nice thing. I also generally think that generalists are more fun to work with. Tommy used to be our director for the YouTuber Academy. Previously, he did a law degree, worked in corporate law for a bit, worked at Amazon for a bit, worked at Google for a bit, and then joined us as our, YouTuber Academy operations associate, and then became the director, and now is doing this completely different thing. Because the business is so rapidly evolving, and what is in 1 year is not in the next year, and also I changed my mind a lot on a lot of things, it's very useful to have people who are generalists who can adapt to basically any role that they're given, rather than people who would necessarily be super specialized in their fields. All right, next question from Rob O'Rourke is, what's the right ratio of expenses and reinvesting versus just taking profits off the table? Honestly, I don't know, but a number I've plucked out of thin air is 60%. So 60% are the margins that we aim for. I've again arbitrarily decided that a good profit to shoot for is £2 million. Wherever that number came from. And at those numbers, we need to hit a revenue of around £3.3 million for 60% margins to equal £2 million of profit, or something like that. Well, it's somewhat arbitrary because super high margin businesses, 90% margins, 85% margins, that kind of thing. Those tend to be, a lot of those tend to be software businesses where you've got like recurring revenue, or you just have a very small team and very lean team. And then like most traditional businesses, sort of 5, 10, 15, 20% margin seems to be the thing. So I was like, cool, let's pick a good middle ground, skew towards the high margin. 60% feels reasonable. And in terms of like the 2 million profit thing, it's like, okay, cool. If we made 2 million profit, 400K would disappear because of corporation tax. So that takes us down to 1.6. I was thinking, it kind of feels nice to put £1 million into like an investment fund or something like that. Why not? Let's plug that number out of thin air, leave 600K, which means I can draw a salary of 250K myself for whatever reason, and now we've got another 350 to put into property or into crypto. All of these numbers I basically just plucked out of thin air one time, and that's kind of what we're going for. So that's the ratio of expenses to taking profits off the table that I think about. All right, Felipe Nunes says, how not to inadvertently slip into a corporate mode with the team getting bigger. Yeah, so I used to think that corporate was a dirty word. I was like, oh, we don't want to do that because it's corporate. But actually, corporate is not a dirty word. Corporate is good. Like in the book Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, who is like the restaurateur in charge of like one of the best restaurants in the world, talks about restaurant smart and corporate smart. And you can be restaurant smart or like kitchen smart if you're just really good at cooking or really good at hospitality and stuff. But you also need to be corporate smart in terms of having systems and processes and the stuff that looks corporate. And you just need to have a sweet spot between those two things. And there's always a tension between those things. The other day, like last week, we were all in Lisbon for a team retreat. And we realized that actually for the last few months, everyone's been filling out a Google Sheet that tracks their KPIs, their key performance indicators. But actually we'd been falling into a bit of a trap where the target of 30 social posts on LinkedIn every week became too much of a focus, and we kind of lost sight of the bigger picture and realized that actually that target's not serving us, so why do we have that target? That was skewing too much towards the corporate side where you just do what you're told because you're filling out numbers on a spreadsheet. But the solution there is not to completely scrap the numbers, it's to sort of tweak. So it's all about getting this balance between corporate smart and like creative smart or whatever, startup versus corporate life. There's always like a middle way. All right, Dan Bogacek says, what is your decision-making framework for hiring? Back in the day, my decision-making framework for hiring was, oh, we have a thing we want to do, let's hire someone to do the thing. These days, my decision-making framework for hiring is, oh, we have a thing we want to do. Are we absolutely sure we want to do the thing? Let's think about it for a while. Okay, if we are absolutely sure we want to do the thing, is there a way of doing the thing without using any people input? Is there a way we can create a system or a machine or an automation that does the thing that we want to do? Okay, if not, cool. We need to potentially bring people into this. Is there a way that we can use our existing team and kind of reprioritize other projects to make sure that we can do this thing that we want to do? If not, okay, is there a way that we can do this thing by hiring a part-time contractor or freelancer to do the thing? Okay, if not, okay, fine, let's hire a full-time person. So what I've realized over time is hiring someone is not a decision to be taken lightly. And the more people we add to the team, the more the complexity of communication increases and the more things slow down. So my model for decision-making for hiring is do not hire at this point unless absolutely necessary. I think in the early days of a business, people with 0 people on their team need to be quicker to hire because when you start hiring, it teaches you so much and helps you level up a lot faster. But at a certain sweet spot, or very quickly rather, you then start to make those decisions very, very, very slowly indeed. All right, Dhaval Shah says, how do you ensure team happiness and has team productivity gone up or down as new members have joined? Okay, so team happiness. This is a thing we keep track of quite closely. We do anonymous surveys every few months. We ask people how they're feeling. We had a whole session with one of our coaches, Eric Partaker, on Thursday while we were in Lisbon, which was a whole session around what would make this the absolute best place to work, where everyone on the team went around and wrote down and said, what is one thing that the business does that contributes to it being the best place to work? And what is the one thing the business could do which would make it even more of a best place to work, or something like that? So we try our best to keep the team happy, as it were. But at the same time, I also try and be mindful of the fact that their happiness is not my job. My job is to give them clarity and to give them a role and to kind of create the environment for them to do work that they're proud of. Happiness is a wholesale, holistic thing that they are responsible for, but I can at least do what I can on the work side of that equation to make the work at least as enjoyable as it can reasonably be. And has team productivity gone up or down as new members have joined? The first few hires are always like way higher leverage than subsequent hires. So it's like diminishing returns. Like at this point, if we added a 15th person to the team, there's almost no way that would boost our team productivity overall compared to the difference between person 2 and person 3. Because when you hire 3 people, suddenly you've tripled the amount of work you can do. Now, as if with a 15th person, we've increased it by, I don't know, 10% or something like that. As you have more people, there are more things that people have to do to keep on top of communication with one another, working with each other, all that kind of stuff. And so one thing that I try and do to get around this is to make sure that everyone owns something big, and that everything big is owned by someone. We only really have one person who's in charge of YouTube. We've got like one person in charge of the podcast. We've got 2 people in charge of like 6 different social media platforms, but it's like 3 each. It's like they've got their very clearly defined areas of ownership. Because there's another phrase that I really like, which is that a dog with 2 owners dies of starvation. All right, Renee says, how much are you paying in salaries altogether? No need to do specifics for each employee. This is a good question. Angus, how much are we paying in salaries this year? So Angus tells me that we are paying about £740,000 worth of salaries this year, which includes national insurance contribution and pension contributions for the 11 full-timers and 1 3-day-a-week person and 1 4-day-a-week person, but that does not include my own salary. And final question, what are the challenges to managing that many employees? What are the biggest benefits? Okay, biggest benefits, we've spent the whole video basically talking about this, the leverage, the being able to delegate stuff, the vibes, the being able to find people who are better than me at doing the thing. And then what are the challenges of managing that many employees? Well, see, for me, it's not that many because Angus is the one who's actually managing that many employees. So I'll put a link to Angus's Twitter if you want to follow him. Maybe he'll write about the challenges of managing that many employees. What are the challenges? Number one, there is a certain sense of pressure. So firstly, there's revenue pressure. So for example, we're going to pay £800,000 in salaries this year and spend probably another 700K in various other expenses. That means our fixed costs this year are like 1.5 million. That's quite a lot. That means the business needs to make at least that much money for us to even break even. And then more than that is profit. Thankfully, we have a nice business that's well run, hopefully with reasonable margins. So hopefully that shouldn't be an issue, but it's always a little bit of a pressure. Secondly, there's just more things to think about. So for example, if it was just me and a video editor and like a writer or something and an assistant or something like that, like, you know, just a three-man team, we'd be making YouTube videos, maybe hiring freelancers for a few things here and there. Life is good. When we start having projects that require a team of 13 people in total, especially our YouTuber Academy, where now we're worrying about like, are students happy? We're worrying about like, are we getting as many sales as we wanted to get based on our revenue projections, based on our profit projections, based on our like headcount costs, all of that kind of stuff. It does add a level of kind of complexity to the business, and it means I sometimes have to think about that stuff. Mostly, when things are going along swimmingly, I don't really have to think about it because Angus, our general manager, deals with all that kind of stuff. But when things are not going well, where it's like, oh crap, we've actually missed a revenue target, that's when it starts to feel like, right, now I need to take myself away from doing the thing I actually enjoy, which is writing and filming and learning about stuff and teaching it, into like, right, let's see where we can cut costs and that kind of stuff. That's not particularly enjoyable. So there's always that kind of stuff that when the problems start to arise, and if those problems can't immediately be solved by Angus or someone else on the team, then I have to start getting involved. I think another challenge is wanting to make people happy. Even though I said earlier that like, you know, my happiness is not their happiness is not my job. I still kind of feel it to an extent. Like if a team member is unhappy with their work, I'll take it as a bit of a personal like, oh shit, like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, is there anything I can do? And I will feel a bit of a personal sense of responsibility that I want everyone who works with me to feel really happy about their job. I don't know, but maybe it's like if you have kids, right? If you have kids, yes, they're their own person and stuff, but like you do kind of feel responsible for them. You're like, you know, I don't want this kid to die. I don't want this kid to be unhappy. I don't want this kid to cry. And so if one of the team members seems like they're unhappy, I'm like, oh, you know, how can I help? You know, it's not like a bad thing. It's just like a challenge that not having team members just eliminates from your life. But You know, just like people with kids. People with kids wouldn't say like, oh, I really wish I didn't have kids. They might grumble about it very occasionally. If you offered them the choice that would you go back and change anything, they'd probably be like, hell no, I love having kids. Similarly, I love having the team. There's challenges, sure, but broadly, my life is more fun than it was pre-team, and the business is more fun to be part of and to run than it was pre-team. Oh, final question from non-linear nodes. Are you happy? Very nice. Yeah, genuinely, I think I'm the happiest person I know. Alison, one of our other team members, says that she's also the happiest person she knows, so she and I need to have a bit of a competition around that. Cliff, one of my friends, says that he's the happiest person he knows. So I hang out with some people that would rate themselves as such. But no, genuinely, freaking love the life, freaking love the business. I genuinely look forward to work on Monday mornings. So I'm filming this on a Tuesday. Yesterday, it was a Monday morning, and I could not wait to get out of the shower and do my skincare and all that kind of stuff because I just couldn't wait to get started with work. And I think if I'd been on my own, that would have been less of a feeling, but because it was with the team, it was just great vibes. We spent last week in Lisbon on a team retreat where we got loads of work done, and we also kind of managed to level up the business, and that was super fun as well. It's just amazing. So if anyone is thinking of potentially hiring a team, would 100% recommend, but it's like, you know, there's challenges along the way, and it's definitely worth speaking to people who have done it before so that you can kind of learn from their experiences, but also you're gonna have to make lots of mistakes yourself. I've made so many mistakes over the last 3 years now of having some kind of team, but hopefully, you know, it's all in favor of progress rather than perfection. Anyway, if you really want to hear about the challenges of running a team, you should definitely check out this video over here, which is a video I made a couple of months ago, which was all about all of the failures that we did in 2022 as a business. We missed a revenue target by an absolute mile. We made so many mistakes, and all of that is detailed in this video over here, all of my failures of 2022. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Bye-bye.